Hi, my name is Jeff Tucker. I'm a senior economist on the Zillow Economic Research team. I'm excited today to share with you a lightning round version of our housing market update. And it's using data computed by the Zillow Economic Research team based off of all of our tens of millions of property records, sales records, and information on things like our site traffic and other information that we use. We combine all of that, we analyze it, and then we actually publish it. So this is sort of a demonstration of what you can do with the data that Zillow Economic Research puts out there. We put it out through an API with the help of Bridge Interactive. We also make it available for download as a CSV. I'm going to include links at the very end of where you can find those. But this is just sort of a quick overview, scratching the surface of the depth and richness of data that you can access from Zillow that we make available by API. So jumping right in, sort of the story of the year here is that the housing market pressed pause in a lot of ways back in March and April. Sales ground to a halt. No one knew what was going to happen. No one knew if it was even legal to conduct real estate transactions in some municipalities. And then everyone slowly came out of their bunkers. In particular, buyers came back to the market, but sellers have sort of lingered on the sidelines. So what this slide is showing is our kind of real-time estimate of purchasing activity. So that's estimate of pending sales on Zillow. We're measuring that based on every time we see that one of those listings on our site has gone pending. You can see that huge chunk taken out of it in the spring. This is comparing current year in the dark color there to, in the light color there to last year's sort of seasonal pace. And of course, you can see the extreme seasonality of home sales here. On the right, it shows new listings, how many new active for sale options are coming on the market. And what that shows is that we've been running up to 20% faster on pending sales pretty much nonstop since June. Whereas new listings have been running 10 or 20% below our year ago pace ever since then. So over that same period of time. So this is basically like running a giant deficit where more homes are leaving the market as new sales than are coming in as new listings every week. And the cumulative effect of running a long deficit is a giant debt or a giant shortage of homes available for sale. So at this point, we're now seeing we are approaching 40% fewer homes on the market nationwide than we had this time last year. These are just jaw-dropping figures for any housing economists, housing market experts, anyone in the industry. You just don't expect to see a giant ship like the pool of inventory in the United States turn on a dime and go down on such a dramatic scale over the course of a year. This is the story of the year in housing. There is a dramatic inventory shortage. It's being driven by the lack of new listings. And the effects are probably predictable. If you know anything about that, about the housing market, a shortage of homes available for sale has started to energize price changes. Another great feature of our data is we can drill into this market by market. If you're wondering, has my market suffered from a similar shortfall? These are just a handful that we're highlighting here from sort of all the corners of the country. What it shows is that this is actually a fairly nationwide problem. Even in the New York City market, we've got about 30% fewer homes available than this time last year. So you put all that together, this huge inventory shortage, it leads to price increases. You have to be careful a bit on the time scale of these two panels. The left is median list price, that's really us keeping a finger on the pulse of what sellers are doing in the market. That is now growing at double-digit percentages year over year. It's up about 11% from this time last year. Again, that is a staggering year-over-year change. This is fairly unprecedented. On the right panel, this is Zillow's Home Value Index. It's our headline measure of what every home on the market would sell for if it were actually listed today. And if that sounds familiar, that's actually built off of the Zestimate, which is Zillow's estimate for every single home, what it might sell for today. We aggregate all those up and then look at the year-over-year changes. So this actually goes back 24 years, goes back to 1996. What that shows is that actually after a fairly soft patch in the housing market last year, home prices are once again accelerating, and home values are accelerating. That nowhere near as fast as median list price, which there are reasons to be cautious using a measure like median list price. And that's why for kind of our long-term, steady hand on the wheel measure of what is really happening inside the housing market, we prefer the ZHVI. Even that has shown a really sharp uptick. And in fact, just since I made this presentation, we're releasing our October data very soon. That's going to show 5.8% year-over-year growth. And this acceleration is actually pretty unprecedented. You can see it in that kind of hook at the end of the graph. So just like any of our metrics, we will break it out by metro area. And this kind of just shows some of those same dynamics, how they're playing out and across different metro areas. And this also gives a bit of a window into why we're often cautious using median list price to describe the market. It can get really yanked around by compositional changes. So if in New York City, a whole bunch of multi-million-dollar condos get listed because everyone's moving out of the city and those listings just sit on the market, well, that goes into the median list price week after week, these unsold, unsellable homes at an insanely, overrated price. So that can pull up median list price without actually affecting sale price or kind of underlying home market values. So again, that's why I think it's important if you drill down on the right panel, checking out ZHVI, I think it gives us a better picture of what's going on here. So for instance, it shows actually Seattle with the fastest home price appreciation right now, despite pretty modest median list price appreciation. And that's because a whole lot of people are rushing out buying starter homes and mid-tier homes. So that's some of the kind of color you can get into by drilling down to metro levels and these different windows on what are actually prices in the market. The other huge effect of an inventory shortage is that homes sell faster. Buyers look around, they say, oh man, there are not that many options. So when I see something, I need to jump on it. Sellers end up getting multiple offers. That was what was driving up prices. It's also causing them to wrap up their listing sooner. They say, okay, great, I got an excellent offer. I need to get on with my job and move into my next home. So we're now seeing homes sell in half the time that they did this time last year, just under 2 weeks, whereas last year it took 4 weeks for the median home. This is the time to go pending. So from the first time it shows up on Zillow to when it goes pending, is just a wonderful thing we can do with our listings database, combine all that across the whole country and figure out just how long are these homes taking to actually sell. Again, you can also see here, again, this is comparing against a fairly typical year, 2019. There's a very pronounced seasonal pattern, and that 2019 seasonal pattern happens virtually every year, where homes slow down a bit as you get out of the summer, really out of late spring. Home sales just take longer and longer. That didn't happen this year. Everything got kind of dislocated. You can see the bump and the bump during the lockdowns, and then how a lot of that demand has gotten shifted out and is now lasting well into October. This is a fairly unprecedented fall that we're experiencing right now. Another question that we've actually been able to dig into this using zip code level data. And this is the product of some amalgamations that we've done on our zip code level data to try to answer this question. We've gotten a lot this year, which is, hey, is everyone leaving the cities right now? Are the cities dead? Is everyone just listing their homes and unable to sell them and having to take huge price cuts because everyone wants the suburbs, everyone wants a big backyard in the middle of the pandemic or a big house with room to work from home? There's definitely some merit to all of those ideas. And there are some interesting kind of divergences in inventory. But so far, our measures of price change haven't actually diverged between urban and suburban markets. This is built off of our classification of every zip code in the country into urban, suburban, or rural. Rural is actually a fairly small category and kind of idiosyncratic. And the big question we were getting was urban versus suburban. But again, zip code level data going back monthly for years and years makes it possible to assemble something like this. And it also makes it possible if you have your own definitions of what comprises the core urban area of a market. Again, you just hit that API, you query it, you can reconstruct this and make your own preferred measure of what are urban prices doing kind of writ large. setting aside the prices, the other way of kind of examining that question was inventory. So we were asking, are any of these, if we take the core city of all these different metro areas and we ask ourselves, is there a glut of inventory there? Maybe it hasn't shown up in prices. Maybe the sale prices haven't caught up to reality. But what is a good preview of what prices are going to do is usually how inventory is behaving. A glut of inventory would tend to start to drive sale prices down. So we did that across the country. We took the primary cities inventory versus the metro areas inventory to see if they were kind of on divergent trends. There was no kind of clear-cut takeaway. In many places, the primary city had a bigger inventory shortage than the metro area. In some of the most expensive metros, which I've highlighted here, we did see a little bit of evidence of less of an inventory shortage in the primary city, with one big exception, which was San Francisco has absolutely been subject to this trend of a rising glut of inventory that's sitting on the market there. We're keeping a close eye on it. The San Francisco market has been a little bit unpredictable this year, but this was one indication that that city being one of the most expensive in the country and with an tech industry that's most geared toward working from home, may be the most subject to this trend of actually kind of moving out of the city, or at least a temporary dip in demand for city living. This is something we actually do not publish on our API. We don't want everyone necessarily to have our exact counts of site traffic, but we're happy to share some charts of year-over-year changes. This was something we started watching actually to see how bad the damage would be this spring as the pandemic unfolded. And you can see we had double-digit declines in site traffic back in March. This was sort of our earliest read, like how much is housing market demand going to crater this year? And then it turned around. It sort of bottomed out, and then we have seen this sustained surge in interest in online shopping for real estate. This is partially a reflection of that extra 20% of pending sales we're seeing every week. I think it's also partially caused by people just trying to do more of the home filtering process online, cutting out some of those weekends spent driving to 20 open houses with the family in the station wagon, spending that time maybe on 40 different 3D home tours that you're looking around to try to winnow it down to just a couple homes people want to see in person. So kind of stepping back, just trying to explain like what happened this year. Why is demand so strong? Why is demand outstripping supply to such a great extent? This is one of my favorite slides. I hope you can read it, but it's showing the age distribution of Americans right now, and it's highlighting the age range 26 to 35 because that is key for current and near-term future home buyer demand. This is the age range when Americans try to buy their first homes. And what's happening right now is there are about 5 million more people in that age range than there were 10 years ago. It's the core of the millennial generation. It's like a mini baby boom, currently centered around age 30. 1990 was that peak birth year. And that, for some sense of scale, that it's about 46 million versus 41 million people 10 years ago who are in that age range. This was my leading chart back in January before I knew about COVID-19 for why I thought there would be strong home buying demand this year. And it remains true. We still have millions of millennials trying to buy their first homes. And they all have a good reason to shop right now, which is record low mortgage rates. We have been hovering well under 3% for several weeks now. And this is making a huge difference. Even I ran the numbers, and even after this pretty robust home price appreciation compared to last year, if someone today were to put only 5% down, they're trying to buy their first home, they buy the typical priced home in America, they would only be spending less than 1% more, basically a rounding error to about exactly what they would have spent as a monthly mortgage payment on the typical home last year. So essentially, all of this home price appreciation is getting canceled out by mortgage rate declines. So this is giving people a great reason to shop. It's making their monthly budget go further, or saving them on their monthly budget if they have maybe a fixed down payment they can afford. So my kind of big question is why we had that chart showing sellers aren't coming to the table. This remains sort of one of our biggest mysteries. For several months this year, sellers just reported that they thought this was a bad time to sell a home. That has finally faded. In fact, just this month, for the first time, more than half of people reported thinking this is a good time to sell a home. So that could be an indication of things to come, that maybe we will see some inventory finally relieve this market shortage next year. So thank you for your time. Here's a couple links. They're pretty easy to remember. Zillow.com/research is where we highlight a weekly and a monthly version of this market report with interactive tableaus. Zillow.com/data is where you can download our data. And it has links there to the API. So thank you so much for your time. I hope this was an interesting exposition of just some of the great things that you can do with data from our API.